Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. If you're ready to take control of your destiny, build wealth, and live life on your own terms, this is the place for you. Each week, Nat and I will talk about business, franchising, and personal growth to help make you more successful. Good morning, Nat.
What's going on, Pete?
Oh, I'm pumped up today.
I can't. I'm super surprised. What's going on?
It's hard to believe, right? So, Nat, I figured out, when they talk about snowbird season, being a snowbird.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. Now I understand this snowbird stuff.
Well, I'm in Chicago, so I'm not sure I want to hear about.
All right. So here's the deal. All right. So we decide that we're going to spend some time in Florida in February. Right. So we pack up our car. And when we're leaving home, it is literally, as I'm packing the car, 4 below. I mean, it's cold.
Gosh.
I'm bundled up. I'm freezing, right? And Dora, it's crazy. It's crazy cold. So we start driving to Florida. And literally every state, we start taking layers off, right? So we get down to Florida. It's 82 degrees here.
Oh, my gosh.
And, so sunny, 82 degrees, gets down in the 60s at night, which is just fine. And I start realizing, I go, holy cow, this is how the other people live. This is what they talk about snowbird season. When I get done with work, I go sit by the pool. It's warm. It's just like, I'm thinking to myself, why would anybody put up with February and cold and snow when you could do something like this?
Yeah, February is definitely the month that gets you in Chicago because you think, oh, we had December, January, maybe we're turning the corner. And then sure enough, always it's like that -0 weather for a few weeks.
So February is kind of the start of the snowbird season for Florida. All right. So we got to talk about another season today, though.
Okay. What season's that?
And it is layoff season. Layoff season is here, Nat.
That's not a feel good.
That's not a feel good, but it's the reality, right? It's arrived, and we've been kind of talking about this coming up, right? We knew that this was going to happen. This is what the Fed wants. They want to see layoffs, and they are getting what they want. They are seeing these companies, and it's amazing. Do you know that January, by the way, is the month that has usually the most layoffs? And we had significant layoffs in January, and we also had layoffs now as we start February. It's crazy the amount of companies that are laying people off.
Yeah. Interesting. Is it mostly tech, or what are you seeing?
Oh, no, it's all over the board. I mean, look at DirecTV. They laid off 5 to 6% of their workforce. Amazon, 18,000 employees.
Wow. Yeah, that could be a lot of like warehouse people, even maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think obviously because the demand we pulled out of the pandemic. How about Salesforce? 10% of the workforce.
Yeah.
Venmo, 11% of their workforce.
So these places, are they usually laying off the best people, or are they laying off the?
Well, a lot of it can depend on your seniority. I mean, it just depends. Yeah. And we're talking about real corporate positions too. I mean, it's crazy. Like Goldman Sachs, 8% of their workforce laid off.
Yeah, I guess probably they also take the opportunity to, lay off some of their high earners too, if they can, right? Or give them early retirement, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. How about IBM? 18,000 people they announced laying off. That's real. Crazy. That's
like a whole town.
That's 18,000 families that get impacted.
Yeah.
Wow, it's crazy from a standpoint. Like Microsoft, 10,000 people. What do you do, right? It's crazy. How about BlackRock? 3% of their workforce. I mean, the largest private equity company in the world, laying off 3% of their workforce. And one that near and dear to my heart is Carvana, 4% of their workforce laying them off.
Wow, that's surprising. I see the Carvana ads everywhere.
Yeah, I think the problem is that when you buy cars high and then try to sell them high, it doesn't work, right? And I think they got caught up a little bit as it appears that used car values are starting to stabilize a little bit from that standpoint as we're getting more availability.
any of these companies are going to be on the Super Bowl.
Well, speaking of that, I just saw there are no, I think for the first time in a couple of years, no crypto ads in the Super Bowl because crypto companies, Coinbase laid off 20% of their workforce.
Oh, well, you figure, they should be smart enough to be able to have AI do all the work anyways, right? What do they need people for?
Yeah. So how about Disney? 3% of their workforce? Going back to the parks, and they're laying off 3%. And one that I just read was Zoom, and I think everybody's Zooming today. What, 15% of their workforce they're laying off?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And when we talk about layoffs, the deal is that if you're a corporate executive, you're being impacted some way. Somehow, these layoffs will impact you in your current position, right? Think about the options or things that could happen. Your position could be eliminated.
Right.
You could be one of the 10,000 that gets laid off, or you could be given a voluntary separation package. Kind of like when the Great Recession, I was offered a separation package. So you can be offered a package, or you could be a supervisor, a leader, and they could say, listen, you got to lay off 10% of your workforce. Go pick the 10% you want to get rid of.
Brutal.
And I don't know if you've ever done that. I did it with a company where they came and said, listen, you got to take out 20% of your people. And that's a sucky conversation to have with people.
Right. Yeah, that's like I said, it's not really a feel good to think about all these layoffs, but
yeah. Or it could be that your family, you got a spouse and they've got an executive position, they get laid off. It impacts you from that standpoint.
Right.
It's just, or you think about it, you could be impacted from a standpoint. It's okay, you're not laid off. You didn't have to lay people off, all that kind of stuff. But it also could impact it as we go through these tough times. Hey, no merit raises, no bonuses this year from that standpoint. Or we need to take a 10% reduction in your pay. All this stuff is going to impact the corporate executive out there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, cost of eggs is going up and everything's getting more expensive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you think about it. I know I've got friends that are still in the corporate world that are getting laid off. It impacts us in many different ways.
Well, you think any colleges, as my kids are headed off to college, are colleges going to reduce tuition to kind of help out with all this?
I think college is a economic business
recession-proof.
It's recession-proof. It's about everything proof. Right? Yeah. They don't take anything down. So exactly. I know that because I've put 4 kids into college. So it's absolutely, even during the pandemic. They're just they don't have to really worry about that stuff. So, but we'll debate that over another podcast in regards to the value equation with college and where it's going from.
That's a different story.
So as we think about being in layoff season and all these companies laying it off, and we know that some way, somehow it's going to impact you. If you're an employee, you could be impacted by all this stuff, the tightening of the economy. So one of the things we do is certainly we help people from the standpoint of figuring out a way where they protect themselves. Mm-hmm. And really, as a business owner, you can never be laid off. You can never be furloughed, from that standpoint, never give it a separation package. So I believe now is the time to create career and income security with the franchise business.
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea to have a plan B, in place. And, you can research franchises while you have your job. And then if something happens, you can kind of, act quickly. As you're researching, you might decide, well, screw it. I'd rather be my own boss than continue to be worried about, if I'm going to be laid off get my banker's box and clean out my desk.
Yeah. Whether you're employed or you're unemployed, it's great to be looking at or considering franchise business opportunities because you just never know. And to your point, you could have your corporate job and you could be looking now, and then 6 months from now, you get laid off and you've got that kind of that business going. Or if you do get laid off, use that time as you're looking for maybe other executive positions, look at franchises at the same time. That's what I did when I left one of my corporate gigs, is I used that time to look at all my different options. So don't get caught up and I got to get another job. Look at franchising. Now, when you and I talk about franchising and we talk about executives, most of them are looking to work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah, all things being equal, I'd rather own, 10 great clips versus be the guy, cutting the hair, right?
Right, right. And when we say it just means that you're leading the business, but you don't have to be the one cutting hair or
Right.
spraying lawns or anything else like that, right? It's working on our business, not in the business. And
Yep,
then and we call that kind of that executive model. So nobody wants to be, or most of the executives we work with don't want to be the artisan. They want to work on the business. And as
totally.
we talk about that executive model, now there's different levels of engagement. So I can decide that, hey, listen, I want to be involved in the business full time. I just don't want to be spraying lawns. I don't want to be making sub sandwiches. I want to be managing the manager, planning the marketing. Right. So there's executive model full time. And then there's what we see a lot of executives doing now to diversify their assets and their income to do executive model semi-absentee, where they keep their corporate job or they do consulting and they start a franchise on the side. And then what do? They basically watch over that manager 15 or 20 hours a week. They don't have to be there every day, but they're kind of setting it up so they can lead the business, but don't have to be involved in it on a regular basis.
Well, and just think about all the tax advantages you get from having your own business. Whether you keep your corporate job and you're doing a business on the side or what have you, there's so many benefits. And then also, a lot of guys have a lot of gas in the tank and they're not necessarily looking to, just sit around do nothing once they turn 65. So you can start to build a business. You retire from corporate and then you can continue to run your franchise for the next 10, 20, 30 years, make a legacy, have your kids run it even. So there's lots of options there.
Yeah, and when you start trying to map out what you need for retirement, I mean, it's hard to save enough money in today's world, right?
Totally.
And if you can go out there and create a business that is creating income for you while you're in retirement, it,
Yeah.
it it's a much easier path from a standpoint having that kind of that income that just continues to come in
Well,
even when you're
even,
not as involved.
I mean, even think about like, even if your business only generated an extra, say $75,000, right? How much would you have to have invested to generate that, so that you could, as income, so you're not touching the principal? I mean, it's a pretty big number, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, that's where they talk about pension millionaires, right?
Yeah.
The pension, if they didn't have the pension, how many millions of dollars they would have to generate that pension income. I
Yeah.
mean, that's significant. And so if you can set yourself up to do it, but we just started this layoff season, this tightening, and it's going to get worse. And so people owe it to themselves to at least look at franchising, and it may or may not be for them, but you want to put yourself in a position where if you do get laid off, you got something there for you. You're creating that career and income security, diversifying your assets, your income, whatever term you want to use. Bottom line is you're protecting yourself, at least the backside.
Yeah. And we just even were recently talking to some franchises with, the fish window cleaning as an example. I mean, that's a great B2B recession resistant. Like windows are always going to be getting dirty.
Yep.
There's all kinds of franchises out there that people, like a lot of times you might say, oh, Orange Theory, or, you like these retail ones, but there's so many.
McDonald's,
Yeah.
Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, and there's so many other options.
Yeah. There's so many service companies. And I like those too, because you could literally, you could kind of start today researching, narrow it down, and you probably could have your doors open and, pretty quickly in maybe 3 months for sure, maybe 6 months,
Depends if it's service or
yeah,
facility, right?
if it's
But
retail, it might take you a little longer because you have the construction and everything. But there's so many options out there. There's something for everybody.
well, and that's what we do is we help people figure out what they're looking for, what they want, and then we go find franchises that align with their interest. And franchising is booming, and we were talking about it in one of our podcasts where at our last conference at Franchise, I mean, it's amazing how many new franchise concepts are coming out. It's just really cool. They take something and they make it different.
Yep.
And so franchising we're seeing is, even though things are tightening up a little bit, franchising is booming, and I think it's because more people are looking at it as an option. And the good thing is that there's still funds available. There's capital available out there to fund your business.
Yeah, there's the money's looking for a home. They're looking for, businesses that generate cash flow. So in franchising, because they have typically have a proven track record, the banks like to see that.
Yeah. And I mean, even interest rates, although they're higher now, they're not unreasonable from that standpoint. Not like in the early 80s. from a standpoint. So I think there's still capital, and people are leveraging equity in their homes, which they got a fair amount right now. They're leveraging retirement dollars to fund the business. The SBA is still out there. They're still got capital available. There's lots of capital available, and combinations of way in which you can deploy that capital to start your own business.
Yeah. What would you say is like one or two of the most surprising franchises that kind of you were surprised, like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I wouldn't have thought of that.
How about a franchise that can make using 3D cameras and printers to basically make a statue of myself?
Like a little
I could do like the Heisman. I could do the Heisman thing, or I could, I always talk about our luxury dog. I could have a statue of my luxury dog, I guess he'd be laying right next to me because he's so lazy. But yeah, there's like, who would have thought about a franchise where you could do statues of yourself?
Yeah. That is pretty cool. I had forgotten about that one.
Yeah, right. It's absolutely amazing to me. So, all right, Nat. Well, I got to get back to snowbird season from that standpoint. I've got a pool calling my name. So it has been great talking to you today, and have an awesome day.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Talk to you later. Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.